Hello and welcome back. In this week's video, we are going to be rating the top 50 EMEA players from last year, and we're going to be going through and basically trying to say who I think was the best during the year, who I think was the worst, and obviously probably upsetting quite a lot of people along the way. Now, just to sort of show you what I've got going on, I've created a little tier list. Fnatic are going to be at the top because I don't want to waste my time trying to work out who's the best Fnatic player. I don't think that's really necessary. I also want to caveat this. I have not included Twiston in the list, I think for fairly obvious reasons, but I don't really want to be placing him because it just doesn't really feel right. So you can try and put him where you want if you like, but for me, that's not going to be something I'm going to be putting into the list. Of course, rest in peace to Twiston as always. But yeah, just to get things out of the way, we are we're just going to put Fnatic at the top because I think that the undisputed within EMEA that they were the best team. I'd say they were the best team of the entire year, although I'm sure there's some EG fans who might disagree with that. And we've just got a picture of every single player. Now, I've also included a few players that, for example, we've got Weber in there. We've also got Zeke, where I'm going to try and place them where they were based on how they played, and some of them are just going to end up quite near the bottom. I'm also going to try and put into consideration, like, the circumstances of them being within the team, and I'm also going to go through and just try and utilize some stats. I also want to say where I first put someone is probably not going to be where they end up, as I'm definitely going to have some moving around to do. Now, I already feel like this is going to be impossible. Now, to start things off, Saigetsu. Saigetsu, all in all, for his standards, I don't think had the greatest of seasons, but I'd still put him relatively high on the list. Like, in games that mattered, he still seemed to put up some fairly decent numbers. So I'd say that it's definitely arguable that he's still fairly near the top, but ultimately definitely not as high as he would have been last year. So I think I'm going to, for now, I'm just going to stick him in the 11 to 15. Solkas, he had a bit of a rough year. I think individually, he's always going to be a player I'll give a little bit of the benefit of the doubt to, because I feel like he does a lot for his team, but I feel like he has to be in the middle somewhere. And that's the thing. As I said, I think there's going to be people I move up and down. I'm gonna stick him here for now. Safe, I think, had a pretty damn fantastic year individually. I'd say that he has to make it into one of these two categories, like, based off of that. They didn't do as much internationally as I would have liked, but obviously none of the EMEA teams really did that much internationally. And also, I think they had some tougher runs than other teams might have done. Like, for example, if you go through, you're looking at the losses. I guess losing to Na'Vi is a bit of a spanner in the works, and he definitely didn't play the greatest when it came to champions. I've just clicked on the same game twice, but I do remember him having some pretty decent performances here and there, and during the EMEA season, he was fantastic, so I think he has to go near the top, as does Nats. And this is where it gets interesting, because I want to just basically go like this, but I almost guarantee I'm going to have to move someone down from this Liquid roster, but it's just who, because it seemed like week to week, things changed quite drastically. Like, if you go back to their, like, victory here, Yumpy was fantastic, safe. Even Soulcast was up there, to be fair, and so was Nats. I guess the one sort of outlier would be Redgar, and I guess Soulcast a little bit. Although that might be a little bit harsh already. I think, again, just got to try and balance things out a bit. Now, Rhyme is a tough one, because Rhyme picked up the IGL role, but his individual level was kind of poor. I feel like he came back again a bit towards the end of the year, but it wasn't something really to write home about with him. Like, a lot of the time he found himself further down the bottom of the board. Had a decent performance in this game, but you're looking at results that I think were mostly growing pains, especially when it came to the league. But for that matter, I can't really put him that high. Vitinho, I think, had a decent year. I was kind of impressed. He was one of the players that, coming into EMEA, I was not really expecting much, or coming into Giants more so. Like, I think everybody else on the team, I rated really highly from the get-go, and I think that Vitinho was one where I was like, oh, I actually don't know how good this guy's going to be, and he turned out to be fantastic. So I'd say that he has to actually be decently high on this board. I don't think he makes it into, like, too far up that top 20, but I was definitely impressed. I think the only player from Giants that I would want to put this high would be Cloud. I still rate him very, very highly indeed. But I think the whole Giants team had a pretty good year. I'd say Nuke came maybe a little bit further down than everybody else, just in comparison to old performances. I don't think he was quite as good. But the rest of the team, I think, has to be around this middle of the pack sort of section. And I realize now that people are starting to get separated into different sections. Now, for FUT, this is where things do get that little bit more difficult. Because I feel like you've got the likes of Ada Captain, Kiwi. I think they've all had a pretty decent year. I think for FUT standards especially, like being able to get as far as they did was impressive. And I think the likes of Cracks and Ada Captain kind of have to go up here. Because this is the thing that's tough with FUT. I feel like from top to bottom, their roster's always solid. Like, I wouldn't say that there was anybody who was a major underperformer. Kiwi, maybe towards the end, was a little bit quieter than normal. But I feel like in a lot of the matches, he was always hyper impactful. I actually want to give credit where it's due to Mr. Fallen. I think he has to go up the list a bit. I think he was really impressive throughout the year. So he'd probably be the one I'd put top, and then maybe something like I don't know. I feel like Kiwi that low seems a little bit harsh, but I do feel like he was definitely a little bit quieter than the rest of the team all in all. But and I guess they've also removed the likes of Moj, so maybe I put him down there just based off their own decisions, but it almost feels a little bit brutal to have some of these players a bit lower. I think, actually, for now, I'm quite happy with this, although I know that I've got Na'Vi coming later on, and I'm already getting to, like, a high amount of players. Some people are going to have to start going down here, which I did actually... I am going to do it. I'm screwed. We'll get to the explanations in a minute. Let's leave them out for now, but they are going to be the players that end up down the bottom. Mosey, I have to say, I like Mosey as a player. I think he's a great player. I was a bit disappointed this year with him. Now, again, circumstances have to be taken into consideration, but even in the games that they did play, I just feel like Mosey was really underwhelming. Like, I feel like he maybe should have been a little bit better in some of these matches individually. And I don't know. I think I just came in with such high expectations that, I don't know, he's going to end up a little bit lower down the list than he would have been at the beginning of the year. I don't know if I want him to be the first person in this spot, though. Destrian I'm going to put up, because I think Destrian is... Oh, I even want to... I'm tempted to put him up here, but I feel like, considering their performances throughout the year, it might be a little bit too high. But I think Destrian's still one of the best support players we have in the entirety of EMEA. In fact, there's even a temptation to put him up here, but I think maybe here and then do this. I think Cracks was phenomenal when it came to internationals. It's between him and Atta, though. Again, okay, I'm going to go back and just... I'm going to base my decision off of stats, because I can't choose between the two of them. If we go further... Okay, that doesn't actually go any further out than that. But I just remember Ada Captain having an absolutely fantastic season and putting in, like, monstrous performances. Kiwi actually was sick at Tokyo. I think I'm just basing more his performances off at Champs, where he was a bit quieter. But you got, like, Ada Captain up there, Cracks up there again. It's really tough to rate the FUT players. I guess, for now, I'm quite happy with this, and I'll leave Destrian in the 16 to 20. I think he'll be a pivotal part. Bone Cold, I also think, has to go lower down in the list. I'll leave him there for now. That's the thing. I feel like I'm doing this with a lot of the players in their team, because it is definitely becoming a little bit more difficult to actually section them out. But yeah, I think that, like, maybe Sender's one is a little bit harsh, but maybe I do it like that. Like, I feel like he's at the top end of that list, but I think that, like, within their team, Destrian was the one who impressed me the most. I'd probably put Twiston in this mid-section as well if I was going to include him in the list, because I think that when he was on, their team looked really impressive. But other than that, I do think that this squad definitely was a little bit underwhelming. I'll be interested to see, because rumors are that Sender's obviously going to be staying with the team, and alongside Destrian, so I'll be interested to see how the new roster works. He might even be calling, which would be quite interesting. Something that I think definitely needs to be watched, because I don't know if that's going to be too easy for him. Now, with BBL, I feel like it's very easy to put a lot of these players quite low down on the list. They had a rough season. I feel like in my head, Turco was a little bit better. I wasn't that impressed with Aslan. Brave as well, maybe, and like this. But I feel like I'm going to have to move some players down. Like, I just don't think that BBL were really that imaginative with a lot of the strategies they came out with. They tried some stuff at the beginning of the season, but ultimately losses to the likes of Karmine Corp were not particularly impressive. I'd say Kushner has to be above the rest. Like, he still showed his ability individually that he can thrive. Like, I don't think he was a bad player throughout the year. And especially when it came down to, like, basically attempting to get into some of those late stage matches, he played pretty well, but I just think the team as a whole was pretty disappointing and never really saw anything that I was like, okay, this is like impressive. Like they're going to be able to get something done here. So, like even at LCQ, just going straight out to KC is just not really acceptable, especially when KC are playing with a stand-in. So I might even have to move some of these players down. I know there's probably gonna be some Aslan fans who are very, very upset, but I think that when he played well in previous seasons or even earlier in the season, he looked impressive. But I almost want to see him going back to a duelist or something. Like I think that he has that individual ability, but ultimately they showed so little this season in terms of creativity that I think like you have to move some of these players down a bit. Mixwell. Mixwell's a tough one. I'd probably stick Mixwell around here. I don't know if he'd necessarily go in that bottom category, but again, we're going to have to fill that out eventually. I think started to show a little bit more once Zeke left and once the team started to basically bond a little bit more. I still just feel like he doesn't have that much of a role within the team. Like he was constantly switching to just different spots within that roster. And I feel like that was more of a problem for them. It was just Heretics never really found that sort of identity. And maybe with the new roster, that was going to be more possible. But again, you look at it playing a Breach. It was like a flex, but I just don't think he had that like individual ability to really be up there as much anymore. Zeke's a tough one because I think I rate Zeke highly as a player. It's just the rumors, like the reasons that he left still seem to be somewhat shrouded from the public and from us, and I'm not sure I necessarily believe the excuse they gave, mainly because he went straight into playing another team. If I'm going off individual basis, I'd put him, I'd like, you could argue much higher, in all honesty, but I think I'll leave him around here. Boo as well. I rate Boo as an IGL, but because of everything going on with that IGL spot, I think it'd be tougher. And I think I'm actually going to move Kushner up. I think that he can go up there. Avova, I would say Avova was the best player on this Heretics roster for me throughout the year. Like, I don't think that's that much to write home about, if I'm being brutally honest. Like, it was definitely the best of a bad bunch. They were the team that were severely underwhelming this year, but he always seemed to put up some pretty decent performances when he was on that controller, and I wouldn't mind seeing him go that a little bit further. Kellogg's for me was the most... Wow, there's one duelist I'm going to put lower than him, and that's this guy, but we'll get to that in a bit. But he was so inconsistent. It's something we've come to expect with Kellogg's, that just the individual ability is so up and down that it's really tough to rate where he actually places on this list. But the joke I always made is he can get 20 kills in the first half, and then he'll get 2 in the next. And that, it's just, you can't have that from your duelist. You need some level of consistency, and unfortunately, he just didn't have it. Now, Weber... I've changed my mind. Okay, I'm still going to put Avova above, but Weber for me was really impressive. I actually think that he needs to maybe even go up one higher, because I think the guy really showed some solid individual level for someone that hadn't really been playing professionally in Valorant. Like, obviously, he had a decent... Or, I say decent. He had a UKCS career. No offense, Weber, but that doesn't necessarily mean a massive amount. But, yeah, he seemed to have great supportive utility. The team definitely had an upturn with him within the roster. Like, again, like, the fact that they were able to get a victory with Weber in the team versus Giants is hugely impressive. So I definitely don't think he deserves to be down the bottom of the board. And now we come to the team I actually think is going to be the most difficult. And I'm realizing that maybe I have to do this and just budge some people up into the higher stage. Because obviously I think we're going to put some Na'Vi players up there as well. But I think that, like, realistically, this team should have been a lot better than they were. And it's hard to find someone to blame. Now, I'm going to start things off. I think Wolfen has to go right down the bottom. He definitely had a better showing when it came to LCQ. But I just don't think he was ready for that tier 1 spot yet. And unfortunately, it seemed like Koi needed someone massively flexible. And he was not that. Like, he definitely didn't seem like he was able to fit in on the, like, supportive agents. Like, you look at his killjoy, it's actually not bad in that game. But I feel like a lot of what his was just having that individual aim and not really having the sort of supportive utility that they needed in other instances. And that's not necessarily his fault, as he was brought in as a duelist. But I think he needs to be down the bottom of this board. Starzo, again, it's really difficult not to just use nostalgia. I think Trex is the only one that kind of climbs this board a bit. But again, I think I might have to maybe do this. It's difficult because I rate Trex really highly, but I don't know if that's based on his actual performance this year. My list is going to end up kind of fucked because of that. It's difficult to actually put where I actually rate some of these players. But you look at, like, the victories, Trex was just unreal. So I think I'm still going to put him in that. I think I could put him higher, but I'll leave him there for now. And I kind of want to put Starzo a little bit lower down. I still think that he had some good performances when they played well. Like, when they're winning, it is these two. Like, these are the two that are up there. Other than maybe that game right at the beginning versus Na'Vi, where I think Shados was killing it. So I think I'd put Starzo in a similar spot, which ends up being quite weird because it means that I've got them above quite a few Vitality players. I don't know if it's just me overrating some of the Koi players or the fact that a lot of their games seem to be close, but they never quite got it over the line. But I want to put, I want to put them a little bit higher. Shados is a difficult one. Can I really put Trex there and put Shados here? Because that means I got 3 players from Koi above members of... Yeah, you know what? Fuck it. The main reason I'm happy doing that is because I'm going to do this. Coordinator, it's always difficult as someone from the outside to rate someone as an IGL. But what I can say is I think Koi, of all of the teams, had the best players with the worst synergy. Like, I don't think a team that has Trek, Shade, or Starzo should be anywhere near the bottom of the board. They should have been a mid-table team. They definitely should have been winning games over the likes of BBL, Karmine Corp. Like, this game, for me, is just a bit of a joke. Like, this was also one of the... I think it was one of the first games they played with Zaysh. Like, I don't understand how they are losing these games, and the only thing I can really put it down to is structure and strategy and synergy, and all of those things for me come from coaching staff and in-game leaders. So I have to put Calder down there. The other reason as well is I'm pretty sure I was looking at this the other day. I think I opened something like, what, should we do it now? I think it was like 7 games in a row, and I think he was bottom of the board on his team in all of them. I did this in another video. It gets to a point where you kind of just have to go, okay, like, either this team just wasn't the right fit for him and he needs those superstars, or he needs to be a coach. But that's the thing, I just don't know what's there in terms of that individual ability. Or I do know what's there in terms of individual ability. I don't know what's there on the other side of things. Now, Scream, I want to put a little bit higher. Maybe here. I still... This one is difficult for very different reasons. In fact, I might move him down to here just for a couple of reasons. One of them is that a lot of the problems that seem to come internally had his name written all over it. Like, the in-game leading of Karmine Corp just seemed to be atrocious. Like, it didn't go well, and a lot of that seemed to come down to him wanting to be in charge. In terms of his own ability, he would be much higher on the list. Like, I think Scream still has that fragging power. I still think he has that first shot accuracy that we sort of rave about. I don't know why I've clicked on that game. But he will still be at the top of the board in the majority of their matches. So I don't think it's fair to put him too low. Like, I think on ability, he could be anywhere around this sort of middle part. But just for the leadership, I have to put him that little bit lower. I think Zaysh. I kind of want to put him here. Like, I think... I might have to move a couple of people up. I think I'm going to move Kushner up here. I think I'm going to move Zaysh here. I want to put XMS here. I'm going to explain all of it. He shouldn't be that far down. Maybe here. Put Shin here and Navira here. Maybe the other way around. I feel like Navira... This is the difficult thing with Navira. I think Navira had a bad season for Navira. Like, I just don't think that he was individually as good as he could have been. But then there's still these numbers where I'm like, okay, he can put up crazy stats. Maybe I swap those two around. Yeah, I think we swap those two around. They had a very bad season, so I don't think I can warrant putting him much higher. But when Navira was on, he was truly devastating. Like, he could still put up crazy numbers on the operator. His Sentinel still looked good. It was also just that they were constantly switching stuff around. I also think my mind is kind of jaded because at the beginning of the season, Shin looked good. And then from that point onwards, he went downhill. But yeah, it's the Screaming Navira show for the most part. So I guess we'll leave it like that. And then that just leaves the Na'Vi players to go up here, which actually seems about right. Now, there is going to be one bonus spot. I think Nuzera, he has to go. It's a 46 plus. There's 51 positions. I'm going to put 50 in the title just because it makes that a little bit more sense. I think he has to go at the bottom. He abandoned ship, but it seemed to be for fairly good reasons. Like, if I'll always say, if you're having mental health trouble, it's a good reason to get out of whatever thing is causing you that stress, and that seems to be the case with Nuzera. But he didn't play well at all, so he has to go at the bottom of the board. Now it comes down to sort of sectioning off, and I've realized that Saigetsu, who was originally on here, seems to have gone missing. So I'll definitely... Oh, no, wait, I put him up here at the beginning. Never mind. He was, for some reason, at the very beginning of all of them, but actually I'm quite happy with where he's placed. For me, CNED, he was all right. I think Angel has to go around here, because the thing is, he's the leader of the team, but the guy trolls the fuck out of half of the matches, so I do think that he has to go a little bit lower than you might be expecting. Xiao, I think, is still the best of the bunch, and I'm going to swap these two around, because I think Saigetsu is a little bit better. I think I might also do this, maybe? Do you know what? I'm actually looking at this list now, and I'm not too unhappy with it. I thought that from the beginning that it was kind of clapped, and I do still think I might be a little bit harsh on the Vitality players, but a lot of it is, firstly, I haven't seen them for quite a while because they didn't play through LCQ. I think also expectations on the roster were quite high when the season began. Like, they were a team that I think very easily could have actually done very well and maybe qualified to one of the events. Instead, they kind of fell a little bit flat towards the end, but they still had good performances versus some of these teams, so maybe Sender should go up a little bit. I'm trying to think who I'd swap him with from this list. I also think I might still overrate some of the Koi players, but the thing is, it's sort of a mix of balance. Like, I put two Koi players right at the bottom, so I feel like I'm able to put some of the others a little bit higher up. I think there's also arguments to be made that, like, I'd probably... the thing is, it's difficult. Maybe I'd put Xiao up a little bit. Maybe swap those two around. But ultimately, I don't think I'm too unhappy. I'm sure there's going to be some people who are very annoyed with some of the decisions that I've made, but I guess we'll wait and see. And I am going to publish this with... the tweet. So once I make the tweet, you will be able to make your own one. So make sure that you comment that under the tweet, or even just comment which one you think I'm outrageously wrong on when when it comes to this. I also think maybe I'd do this as well. But anyway, before I get too off, I could also put him up. The end, whatever. Until I go too crazy, I hope you've enjoyed the video. This was maybe a little bit longer than I was expecting it to be, but I hope that there was some insight into why I've done everything. Obviously, Fnatic at the top, and as said, I don't think there should be anything that upsets people too much, but we'll wait and see. Make sure to comment down below what you think of the list, how bad it is, and what you would change about it. And of course, if you did enjoy the content, make sure to like and subscribe. I've been Tombizz, and I'll see you next time.